You are listening to Perplexity.
We all love a good story, but part of what perplexes me so much about urban legends is where they could have come from. And it seems like every state is chock full of urban legends. My home state of Texas is no different. I thought it would be fun while I take a little break this week for Thanksgiving to do another Patreon leak for you guys, but this time I am going to give you a peek behind the curtain to one of my exclusive series on Patreon called Texas Urban Legends. I've released, I believe, 7, maybe more volumes at this point. I've been working on it for several months. And today you're going to get to hear volumes 1 and 2, remastered and mixed together. Volume 1 has 3 little stories, all creepy urban legends from Texas, and Volume 2 is all about Snuffer's restaurant, an allegedly haunted restaurant in Dallas, where I lived for many years. And at the end of Volume 2, I also had lots of fun reading some reviews from Snuffers and making fun of the people who wrote them. So that'll lighten things up. It also might make you a little bit hungry. After all, it is Thanksgiving this week. Which leads me to the next thing I wanted to say. I am thankful for each and every one of you. Thank you so much for continuing to listen week after week. It really does mean the world. And I hope you'll have a very, very happy Thanksgiving. Have some great time with family and eat some great food. I also, before we get started, wanted to just remind everybody that for those of you listening on Spotify, Spotify Wrapped is supposed to drop either the week this comes out or usually early December. And it would make me super happy if you guys tagged me in your Spotify Wrapped. So make sure you're following me on Instagram at Perplexity Mystery Podcast. Share your Spotify Wrapped on your story and tag me. I would love to see everybody's Spotify Wrapped and repost those. It would just be a great little present. And yeah, I think that's all the announcements for today. Trigger warning, as always, for today's episode. Podcast isn't for children, listener discretion, and all of the sources that were used for these Texas urban legends will be available down in the show notes. So without further ado, here is volumes 1 and 2 of my Patreon series, Texas Urban Legends. So I'm going to be sharing 3 terrifying, interesting urban legends with you today. There is a little bit of humor in them as well. So please let me know if you are enjoying this new series and what other urban legends you want me to tell. The first urban legend is known as the Dancing Devil. So the legend of the Dancing Devil has become pretty well known in the southwestern region of the United States, but it's almost unheard of in other parts of the U.S. According to San Antonio residents, this is how the legend goes. A dashing and handsome young man, some would say El Guapo, dressed in all white, entered the El Camaroncito nightclub on Old Highway 90 on Halloween night in 1975. I feel like Halloween night is like the best way to start an urban legend, right? So people would say this man was a ladies' man. He was wooing women left and right. Even the shy girls that were there were like, who is that handsome fella? And he was a very talented dancer. So local historian Dosia Williams has reported that all eyes were on him that night. People could not resist him. And it seemed that the women were under his spell. But as the evening went on, things took a pretty creepy turn. So Seeming to break out of their trance for just a second, one of the women that was dancing with this guy looked down at his feet. And the woman would scream in terror, "Your feet, your feet." She would break free of his grip, and she would start pointing at his feet, kind of making this big spectacle on this nightclub. So as everybody started turning around and looking at this dancing guy's feet, it seemed like his feet had transformed into clawed chicken-like feet, which, not gonna lie, is a little funny to me. It kind of reminds me of those socks that people wear that make their feet look like chicken feet. And it is said, according to legend, that the patrons would gasp and shriek and start to pray. Some people also say that the man's feet turned into goat-like hooves, but either way, the attendees thought that they were in the presence of Satan himself. This man or creature would then dash into the bathroom. Some say galloped into the bathroom. And it is said that he vanished into thin air. They found an open window in the bathroom, but this dancing devil was never seen again. The one thing that he left behind was a billowing cloud of smoke that had a strong smell of sulfur. So if you ask local old-timers about this story, you will likely hear that they knew somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody, whatever, that was there on that fateful Halloween night in 1975. Over the decades, that old nightclub has changed into a variety of businesses, but most recently, it has become a gentleman's club. And former employees have claimed it is quite haunted. And that sulfur smell never really left. I also found a similar legend that has been told through other areas of the Southwest. See if you notice some similarities. One of the last Sundays before Lent, a servant woman went to confession and communion. Despite the reprimands of her mother, who warned her not to desecrate the day doing anything mundane, she couldn't resist the temptation. She was going to go to a dance at the Vineyard, which was a ballroom in the inner suburb of Danzig. The punishment for her going there would quickly come, because around midnight, she would see a handsomely dressed stranger with dark black hair and eyes that glistened. He would beckon her for a dance. She would join him happily, and they would dance. But the dance would become faster and faster and faster. One of the musicians that was watching the dancing people very carefully claimed he noticed that this mysterious male stranger had the cloven hooves of Satan himself. He drew his friend's attention to it, and in the middle of their dance, they changed the tune. So they were playing like some catchy dance tune, and then they changed it to a religious hymn, I guess to try to scare off the devil. The clock would then strike 12, and the devil pulled his partner close to him, and they whirled across all the way to the other side of the room and crashed through a window. The girl would later be found lying in the green grass, covered in broken glass, and the devil man had disappeared. And to me, these legends seem to be an attempt to keep people away from being tempted by the devil. So that is the urban legend of the dancing devil. It's a bit of a shorter one. This next one is a little bit longer, and it is the story of the donkey lady, which I hadn't heard, but apparently it's pretty well known in Texas. Some people have also alleged that the dancing devil could be cousins with Donkey Lady. But the tale goes that in the mid-1800s, a family of 4 settled near Elm Creek in San Antonio. And one day, a wealthy man from the area came past their home, and he started to tease a donkey that the family owned. But the donkey would become frightened, and it would end up biting the man. And this pissed the man off, so he started beating the donkey. Like an asshole. The husband and wife would hear the cries of the donkey and they would run outside. They would get there, luckily, before the man killed the donkey, and the couple would pick up rocks and start throwing them at the man, trying to get him to stop. Eventually, the man would leave, and later that evening, the man and a group of other men would come back, and they would set the family's home on fire. They blocked the exits in the home as well to make sure that no one escaped. Luckily, the husband was able to break out of the home, but he was gunned down by the men, and he would claim to hear the screams of his wife and children being burned alive inside. Just as the mob was getting ready to leave, a figure that was covered in flames would emerge from the home. It seemed to be the wife, but her hands had been melted to nubs. Her face was deformed, her skin was sagging from the fire, and her skin was burnt black. She let out a piercing scream, and she threw herself into the nearby creek. Her body then vanished, and she was never found. She has become known as the Donkey Lady. And today, there is the Donkey Lady Bridge over Elm Creek. According to legend, if you drive on this bridge, especially at night, and honk your horn while beckoning for the Donkey Lady to come, you will summon her spirit. If you're feeling particularly brave, you can also honk and yell before you get out and actually explore the bridge. So people who have visited Donkey Lady Bridge have claimed to witness a creature with a donkey's face, screaming at them from the window of their car. Some people have also said after these encounters, they have later seen hoof prints on the ground. According to legend, the Donkey Lady haunts this area and torments all who cross the bridge, still grieving the loss of herself and her family. The bridge is not far from San Antonio, and it has attracted a lot of visitors and ghost hunters, but you might notice a difference of how the bridge looks during the day versus at night. During the day, it's very unassuming. The guardrails on both sides have enough space for cars to comfortably drive across, but when the sun goes down, it's no longer a charming, lush vegetation area. You can see very little because it's a pretty rural area, and people claim that the air gets really heavy. You get this feeling like someone's watching you. So people have speculated this could be the Donkey Lady watching over the area. I did come across a sighting of the Donkey Lady on weirdus.com, and I found out the sighting came from a book called Weird Texas, so I wanted to shout that out. The book is by Wesley Treat, Heather Shade, and Rob Riggs, so I would like to read this sighting to you all. I started elementary school in 1966 at Westwood Terrace in San Antonio, Texas. While I was there, I heard many local legends. Later, I found that anyone who had gone to school in San Antonio had heard of the Donkey Lady. Now, the way I heard it back in the 50s, a young woman had been in a fire. My wife says she heard the Donkey Lady had lost 2 children in that fire and that her husband started it. She was left horribly disfigured. It was said that when her face healed, all of the skin had something of a drooped, baggy appearance. Her fingers had fused together, leaving dark stumps or hooves. Disfigured and totally insane, she stayed mostly in the rural areas of Bexar County and terrorized anyone who approached her. As children, when we would stay out late on summer nights, we would all describe what we thought she looked like. We were absolutely positive she waited in the darkness for us to separate so she could pounce on a lone victim, ripping and chewing. Well, you get the idea. Most of the Donkey Lady stories have faded into memory, but one was a little harder to shake. One of my best friends told of a cousin who was with his father and brother on a weekend outing. They were going to camp and do a little fishing in an unofficial county park. The group pulled up to a weed-infested area off of a dirt road and began to make camp. The two boys had the task of unloading the pickup truck, while the father found a suitable spot for their tent. While unloading the truck, one of the boys heard a rustling in the weeds just ahead of the truck. He told his brother, who turned in, to call out for his father to come to the truck. The three of them watched the tall weeds beneath the oaks away from the road bend under the weight of what apparently was a large animal. But then they heard an odd snorting sound and a high-pitched snarl. The father, not recognizing the sounds coming from the animal, decided it probably was best to find another spot to set up camp. The three of them quickly threw the tent, the sleeping bags, and gear into the back of the truck. While packing up, the father watched out of the corner of his eye as the weeds shook nearby. The prowler moved away from the trees and began heading for the general area of the road. The father urgently whispered for the boys to get in the truck. Fast. All three of them were in the truck in a flash, and the father started it up. He put the truck in gear and was pulling out in the road when something fast and large burst out of the weeds and ran in front of the truck. Seconds later, a horrible apparition bounded onto their hood and began shrieking at them through the glass. It was the ugliest thing any of them had ever saw. They swore it looked like a donkey, but it was mostly human. It screamed at them more as the truck continued to move away from the weeds and into the road. It used its deformed hands to punch at the windshield and broke it in many places. The father hit the brakes. The thing slid off the hood and onto the dirt road. Throwing the truck into reverse, the father floored the gas pedal and put some distance between them and the thing, backing into the weeds off the road. He then put the truck into first and stepped on it again. That thing was coming up on them fast. They said it almost looked like a wild animal, with an incredible look of rage and hatred in its eyes. Dirt sprayed up from the road at the beast as they pulled out, slowing it down just enough for them to get away. The donkey lady supposedly had finally dropped back and headed into the weeds. After the story was told, and my friend let it be known that he thought it was a nice story, but, well, it was a nice story. Then he was taken outside and shown the truck. The windshield was almost knocked out. The hood was dented and its paint was scuffed and scraped. The Donkey Lady Bridge is the bridge that crosses Elm Creek via Applewhite Road, approximately 4 miles north of Loop 1604 on the south side of San Antonio. The tales that I have on the Donkey Lady are not directly related to me. However, they were relayed to me through friends and high school. These are people I've known all my life and have no reason not to believe them. One night in late 1987, while at my best friend's house, 4 fellow companions showed up. Bored and looking for something to do, we suggested they visit the Donkey Lady Bridge. This locale was only a short drive from the house. They agreed and were soon driving out of sight. About 6 hours later, their vehicle returned to our driveway with only one occupant. Assuming he had taken the girls home and was ready to party in San Antonio, we went out, anxious to greet him. What we found at the car was something I will never forget. The windshield was busted, the front dented, and there was what appeared to be blood all over the hood. We immediately ran to the driver's door to see if John, not actually his name, was all right. He was just sitting there, staring out the windshield with a blank expression on his face. After several minutes of consistent badgering, we finally got him to talk. He told us he and his friends, Lisa, Terry, and Jill, had arrived at the bridge. They began to honk their horn and call for the Donkey Lady. After about 15 minutes of not seeing anything, they decided to go into the woods and take a look for themselves. What happened next was truly unbelievable. And if I hadn't known John all my life and had seen the car, I would not have believed it myself. While walking in the woods, John said he got the feeling they were being watched. He immediately stopped and told everyone to be quiet. Looking around and evaluating the situation, he discovered in the distance what appeared to be two eyes staring at them. These eyes seemed to be reflecting from the moonlight and were of a color that he said was indescribable. The girls immediately panicked and began running back to the car. John was quick to follow, and soon after he turned away, and there was a horrible scream from the same direction as where he saw the pair of eyes. He described it as being almost a cry from an intelligent animal. Too afraid to turn around, he picked up his pace and sprinted to the car. When he got there, the girls were already inside, screaming at him to leave. As he was trying to find his keys, he heard the sounds of what seemed to be a horse running towards them. Starting the car, he slammed it into gear and put the pedal to the floor. Suddenly, a figure appearing in the road in front of them. Too afraid to stop, John would collide with the figure. It hit the hood of the car and rolled over the roof. Looking in his rearview mirror, he said he thought the figure got up and continued to chase them. After hearing this and seeing the condition of the car, my friend and I felt this deserved a second look. John told us that he would never return to that bridge again, but if he wanted us to risk our lives, we could go right ahead. Grabbing 2 flashlights and a pair of shotguns, we jumped in my pickup and made way for the bridge. As we drove closer, we slowed down and turned on the off-road lights my truck had. These lit the road and the woods to the side of us as if it were daytime, giving us an outstanding view of the bridge as we approached. The first thing we noticed as the bridge drew close was the large amount of blood on the road. However, this was the only evidence we could find of the incident described by John. Upon our investigation of the woods on foot, we discovered what seemed to be several tracks of a small horse leading to the road. After several hours of looking and not finding anything, we returned to the house. By this time, John had already found his way home, and we lay in bed, too excited to sleep. To this day, none of the people involved in this story have returned to the bridge. Did John actually see and strike the donkey lady that night? Or was it merely a stray pony startled by their presence? All I know is that something was there that night, and it did scare our friends half to death. And I did find one more incident similar to the other attack with Donkey Lady, so I will share that, and then we'll do one more urban legend. So this attack allegedly was on the weekend in 1989, and some friends were driving in their 1973 Impala. They were showing their younger cousin, the driver, a guy named Todd, around the area. They had turned 13 that year and they were being inducted. Typical 70s, 13-year-old driving a car. So they drove to Donkey Lady Bridge. They had never been there and they thought it would be a fun thing for them to do. There was even a phone number that the kids said you could call and you could hear the Donkey Lady. It was a common legend in their area. So they drove out to the bridge, turned off their headlights, and the night was very eerie. There was a full moon, and Todd slowly started to advance across the bridge. But then a figure appeared out of nowhere. He stopped the car, and the kids are whispering to each other, trying to figure out what's going on. Todd put the car in gear and started honking his horn and slowly inched his way toward the shadowy figure. But then the figure vanished. Todd sat listening to suggestions from his friends of what to do. They were like, maybe we should back up the car. Maybe we should just gun it. We should leave. But then something landed on the hood of their car, and I'm sure it made like a loud thud. So everyone's screaming and freaking out, and this prompted 13-year-old Todd to slam the car into reverse. The dark figure would roll off of the hood, similar to the other stories, and Todd kept driving until he reached the main road. And after that, then all the friends got out to look at the damage of the car. There were 2 deep dents in it, and no one really knew what to make of this encounter. They would later get home, go inside, and call it a night. Todd would later take the car to a body shop, and they had to replace the entire hood. Okay, sorry, this makes way more sense. I misread. I just realized Todd, I think, is 17, and the other cousins in the car were around 13. So he was just kind of driving them around trying to give them a good scare, and they got one. So my apologies, I kind of misinterpreted that. Okay, so this last legend I have never heard of, and it's just so ridiculous and funny to me. So this is the Fang baby of Old Pearsall or Pearsall Road. So according to this Texas urban legend, late one night in the 1960s, this group of young friends, early 20-somethings, are driving home, and they had been drinking at a bar. They piled into the white Impala, and they were on a long stretch of the Old Pearsall Road when the driver, a man named Pete, saw something strange out of the corner of his eye. So for a split second, he saw what he thought was a toddler, maybe 2 to 3 years old. So he swerved to try to avoid this toddler. The car would end up crashing and nearly flipping. It landed in a big pile of brush off the shoulder of the road. And according to Pete, the toddler appeared to be hurt with a bloody mouth and was wearing a white shirt and a diaper. But when they crashed the car, then this baby vanished. The friends would then argue about what they had seen. Some said they didn't see anything. Others said they saw a baby. But all that to say, Pete was pretty pissed off about crashing his car and decided, once they kind of gathered themselves, to just drive everybody home, and they would figure it out later that morning. So it was really, really late at night. So they sleep it off, wake up early the next morning, and Pete is wondering about what he saw and if there was any possibility that it was a baby or an animal. So he decided to drive back to this same spot. He drove alone and decided to investigate the road, but while he was on the road, he mysteriously got a flat tire. The tire was really badly damaged, pretty much shredded when he looked at it. So he didn't notice the 2 puncture marks on it. After changing the tire, he got back in his car, and he's tired, so he decides to grab a beer out of the cooler, and he's sipping his beer, and he ends up dozing off in the car. So according to legend, after dozing off for a while, he would be suddenly awoken because he would feel a stinging sensation on his neck. And he would see a toddler, the same one as the night before, standing in his lap with a bloody shirt and 2 long upper fangs protruding over his bottom lip with blood dripping from his mouth. That's right, a vampire baby, everyone. So legend has it that this is how Pete met his doom. And Pete's sister would later see Pete in her dreams, warning her to never drive down Old Pearsall Road, and he asked her for her prayers. So those are some urban legends from Texas. This is volume 1, hopefully many more to come. I thought those would be interesting and fun to share. I've got all the sources down in the show notes if y'all want to check out more, and let me know what you thought of these urban legends. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a Patreon exclusive episode of Perplexity, a mystery podcast. As always, I am your host, Kaydra, and I am rocking a cat shirt today. Just pulled a hair off of my shirt because I'm shedding, as always. What else is new? This is Texas Urban Legends Volume 2. And I thought it would be fun to talk about Snuffer's restaurant. It's in the Greenville area of Dallas, and it's allegedly haunted. There's been some really interesting stories and history that's come out of there. It is a shorter story, though, so I did find some reviews online that talk about the restaurant. Unfortunately, none of them mention ghostly activity, but the reviews are always just really funny and entertaining to read. So I'll read some of those at the end, and you guys can let me know down in the comments what urban legend you want me to tell next. In the lower Greenville area, located at 3526 Greenville Avenue, you will find the restaurant Snuffer's. And I've never been here, but I am from Dallas-Fort Worth, so I looked it up. It's kind of this unassuming, it looks like kind of a mom and pop joint. It's not anything fancy. But according to their website, this place is renowned for their burgers and their cheese fries, which sounds delicious. It opened in 1978, but the place has been haunted, allegedly, from the very beginning. So when it first opened, they immediately started having this paranormal activity being reported by both the patrons and the employees. According to Thrillvania.com, it is the most haunted restaurant in Dallas-Fort Worth area. I don't know if that's true. I feel like a lot of people claim that, like, oh, this is the most haunted, or this is the most haunted hotel in all of the US. So I don't know, but that's what they're claiming. And from the time Snuffer's first opened, employees started to report apparitions, objects being moved, flickering lights, disembodied voices, and glowing orbs, which is always a sign of paranormal activity. Even after the original space that was here was demolished in 2013 and rebuilt, it's said that the ghost or ghosts here have continued to linger. People who worked there at the time hoped that by remodeling, they would get rid of whatever was here, like maybe it was attached to furniture or an object or the building itself, but it seems that whatever's here is attached to the land because the paranormal activity did not go away. If anything, it seems like it amplified after the remodel. According to employees and patrons, the ghost is the spirit of a man who was murdered in the original space when it was a pool hall. In fact, the owner, Pat Snuffer, won't even go into the restaurant if he's alone. Like, can you imagine buying, like, he probably poured his life savings into this place. And he doesn't even feel safe enough to go in there alone. That's crazy. So he has to, like, always have a friend or another employee with him. And he's definitely had some experiences for himself. According to Pat, within a span of 10 minutes, 3 different times, he's claimed to hear 2 men's footsteps. So I guess 2 separate people. I don't know why he's attributing it to male footsteps, maybe like the sound of work boots or something. It didn't specify in the sources. But he's heard 2 different sets of like people walking within the span of 10 minutes, 3 separate times. So very specific. And he also said multiple times when he knew he was there alone, and this is probably why he stopped going there alone, he would hear the bathroom door creaking open by itself. So pretty creepy. He has also claimed, and this is an immediate no for me, that he has heard children giggling in the restaurant. That is always, like, if you asked me what were like the top 5 worst things to hear in a haunted location, children giggling is definitely in my top 5. I don't know why. I guess it's because of the horror movies I've seen, but there's just something really creepy to me about it. Other employees have reported cold spots, being tapped on the shoulder, and being brushed up against by seemingly nothing. Patrons have reported cell phone and camera malfunctions, and they've also reported cold spots or temperature drops that were pretty significant, sometimes being from 75 degrees to dropping to as low as 30 degrees. They've also seen light fixtures swaying back and forth. They've reported hearing disembodied voices and footsteps, doors creaking open and shut by themselves, and children's voices, once again, coming from inside of the walls. Really creepy. NBC News did a story on Snuffer's restaurant, and during their visit, they took a bunch of photographs. They brought in these photographers to see what would happen. And all of the photographers reported having weird, unexplained camera malfunctions, issues with their cameras that they've never had before. They also had a microphone where the battery kept randomly going out, like it would work, and then all of a sudden it would be dead and it wouldn't turn on, it wouldn't work at all. And the flashes on a lot of the photographers' cameras kept malfunctioning. It would just like go off and flash for no reason. Bradley Anderson, district manager, claims this place is definitely haunted. He's had a lot of experiences, according to himself, including hearing someone calling his name, lamps rocking and shaking, and hearing disembodied footsteps, especially late at night. He's also seen glassware levitate. He's seen things fly off the shelves with seemingly no explanation. He has also reported the objects, like things they've placed around the restaurant, being moved or disappearing. One example he gave is every night, like the soda machines with the nozzles, the automatic ones, they have to take those nozzles off and clean them so that sugar and bacteria doesn't get collected in them. So every night they pull these nozzles off and they let them soak overnight. And when they went to put these nozzles back the next morning, they were gone. Bradley also has felt a firm physical touch before, someone touching his leg. As if one spirit isn't eerie enough, Bradley believes there are at least 2 spirits living in Snuffers. The second one is believed to be the spirit of a gentleman who was stabbed or possibly shot in the Easy Parlor. And the Easy Parlor is the restaurant that was here before Snuffers, the one that was tore down. And then in 2013, it was remodeled and became Snuffers, is what I gathered from reading these stories. Easy Parlor seems like it was some type of old biker bar, and some sources reported it was around in the 70s before Snuffers. According to legend, there was this going away party at Easy Parlor in the beer garden area. For some reason, there was some type of fight or misunderstanding. Things got crazy. This group started fighting, and this resulted in someone being murdered. He would be found in the bathroom on the floor with the door open. So I think his body was like between the entrance of the bathroom and like the door. He passed away, and years later, before the place was remodeled, managers would sit at the table closest to the bathroom, I guess to do their paperwork during closing time, and they would get a lot of paranormal activity near this bathroom. They would hear footsteps, the bathroom door would open and close on its own. And back when the Easy Parlor was still around, smoking was allowed because it was the 70s. And bartenders there would claim that their cigarettes would be flipped around in the ashtray when they would turn around to like wait on a customer. So they would smoke, set it down, kind of, hey, what do you want, whatever, go back to their cigarette, and it would be in like a different position than when they left it. So pretty classic poltergeist activity. So Steve Cole, a manager, has also reported some weird experiences. One night, he said he was counting the money in the till when he felt someone touch his shoulder and breathe on him. There's also Frank Knight, a former general manager, who has reported he always feels uneasy anytime he walks into the restaurant, which then leads me to wonder why he's managing the restaurant and staying there. Like, that just seems like a terrible experience to have, walking into your place of work day after day and immediately feeling uneasy. One time, a customer told Frank Knight that whatever was in this restaurant seemed to have taken a liking to Frank, because this person claimed they could see this entity following Frank around. One time, a customer snapped a picture of the restaurant's front door, and up towards the top of the door, close to the ceiling, you could see the reflection of this mirror that was inside. And when the customer was looking through the pictures, they noticed a disembodied face in the mirror. It looked almost like a skeleton, but you could make out a nose, a pair of eyes, and it appeared to be wearing a coat. Corey Holmes, another former general manager, reported one time when they were closing up, they saw a black silhouette just kind of lurking near the bar. And at first, Corey thought this was an employee. I guess he just kind of saw him out of the corner of his eye and didn't think too much of it. But after a few minutes had passed, Corey went to go talk to this person to make sure everything was okay. So he probably had a gut feeling something wasn't right. So whenever he went over to check on this quote-unquote person, they were gone. Corey then felt a sudden cold rush of air and felt very uncomfortable. According to Corey, they knew right then that whatever was in the restaurant was not an employee, it was a ghost. There was also Ross Fortson, a former bar and hospitality manager here, and Ross was a skeptic until he had an experience as well. One night, Ross and another manager were closing up. They turned off the kitchen lights and they were getting ready to go, but the lights kept suddenly turning back on by themselves. And this would happen a couple of times. So Ross and this other manager are confused. They're looking at each other. They keep going back and turning off the lights because gotta save on electricity. And every time they go to leave, the lights would come back on. So something wanted to keep those lights going. Eventually, Ross and this other manager decided to nope the fuck out of there and just leave the lights on. Probably a good idea. Another experience comes from Maria Hernandez, a server at the restaurant. She and her friend were hanging out in a booth one time, just eating lunch. She's on her break. And Maria had a straw in her water glass. She kept noticing that the straw was moving around in the glass, seemingly by itself. It was like the table was being bumped or something, and this kept happening over and over. So when Maria went to, at one point, grab the straw and try to make it stop, the straw would move away from Maria's fingers. So her and her friend got so creeped out, they decided to just sit in a different booth. There's also a legend that Snuffer's was built on top of a children's cemetery. So maybe that's why you hear children giggling and like the laughing in the walls. People have also reported hearing children's voices at night. There's similar to a lot of these places, there's a couple of legends. So that's one of the legends. Another legend is that this place was built on top of a Native American burial ground. And this was an area in North Texas. There were definitely Native American tribes that were here long before white people were. So, I mean, It's possible. And while these encounters are eerie, it seems like overall, while it is creepy, these ghosts seem to be generally friendly. They generally leave guests and staff alone, only demonstrating mild poltergeist activity. Like they move things around, there's footsteps, you hear some voices, but it's not like they're hurting or possessing anybody or tormenting them. So, Snuffers has been investigated several times. Jenny Snyder from the Dallas Area Paranormal Society claims that this building is haunted. They were able to capture multiple EVPs while they were investigating here, and that seemed to be the sound of children's voices. So, if you are ever in my hometown, give Snuffers a visit, and I will definitely go eat here the next time I'm in Dallas. I love a good burger and cheddar fries, and it'd be pretty cool to see if there's, anything to this place. And like I said, since this story is shorter, I'll read you guys some reviews now that I found online, and we can make fun of them. So let's start with a 5-star review. This place had amazing food, and I am super critical of what I like. I started off with the potato soup, which was perfect consistency and had great flavor. The potatoes were cooked just right, not too mushy or crisp. I think they meant mushy. Not too mushy. Onion rings are super thick and good. However, they were a little underfried, and the batter tasted a slight doughy in couple spots, but not many. They were still very delicious and edible. But the highlight of the meal was the chicken fried steak with mashed potatoes and creamy gravy. I've tried this meal a lot of different places, but this was by far, hands down, the best I've ever had. The crust on it was impeccable, and the inside was nice and juicy. It was a seat-yourself situation. Win-win came in, and the place was fairly busy, and neither one of the booths' tables had been wiped down by the time we sat down. But someone did come over and take care of for our table a couple minutes after we sat down. Okay, if this is a seat yourself situation and you walk in and it's fairly busy and you just immediately sit yourself at a table, yeah, it's probably gonna be dirty. But as soon as they went to go sit down, it was already clean. It's why are you even mentioning that? You know what I mean? It's people just notice the weirdest shit. This is still a 5-star review, but I'm just and the way that they break down every single aspect of the food, it's how do you even remember that? I noticed the same thing happened with another customer in other booth. Other than that, and couple undercooked onion rings, this is definitely a place that has everything going for it. I only did 3 stars for atmosphere. Oh no. Because of the table situation. And that there was a huge part in the restaurant that had one particular lady that was laughing so loudly that reminded me of a hyena. Parking. Parking spaces are pretty tight. That's the end of their review. The fact that, yes, this is a 5-star review, but they are complaining about a woman laughing loudly in the restaurant. What do you want Snuffers to do about that? Do you want them to walk up to a customer and say, hey, shut up? What the hell? What the hell? Oh my God. Okay. So let's read a 4-star review. Walking in it, first of all, I want to say before I read any more of this, every single word is capitalized. Yeah. Okay, so walking in it was kind of small, but we bring the energy everywhere we go, and our amazing waitress Dina was able to match it. They had great chips and salsa, which was a great piggyback for our last stop. I don't know what that means, but okay. Great bar food at a decent price. I was actually surprised at the price of the ticket. There's no punctuation, by the way, so I'm trying to read this, but everything's running together. I figured it would be more expensive. They are open till 1, which makes it a great late night munchy spot. I think they meant munchy. Is this the person who wrote the 5-star review and said the onion rings weren't, or the potatoes weren't too muchy? But I will say, Dina would be the main reason I would stop by again. Y'all stop by, show her some love, and tip your waitress. Heart emoji, firecracker emoji. All right. Okay, so now we're going to start getting into the complainers. So here's a 3-star review. Disappointing, ... I owned a home in the M streets for over 10 years. I don't know what that is. And I owned a food trailer. Oh, okay. So this guy knows what he's talking about. Got it. I've eaten at Snuffers a lot. Capital letters. I ventured from my traditional burger and tried the patty melt. No seasoning at all. Capital letters. Seriously, ... I've had better PMs. I think that stands for patty melts, but really, can we not just write patty melt? No one says PMs. I've had better PMs at Whataburger. Whataburger is delicious. Why are you, kind of dissing Whataburger? You know what I mean? I usually order my meat cooked medium, but ordered medium rare because I didn't want to chance it coming out overdone. Okay, hold on, stop. Sir, you ordered a patty melt. Beef patty. Am I the only one who's confused why you would get that medium rare? I get steaks medium rare. But when it comes to burgers, you get that shit medium, period. This sounds like it's your fault from what I'm reading so far. It did come medium rare, yay, parentheses. Okay, then shut up. Jesus. The cheddar fries, oh, the fries. Oh, wait, hold on. The cheddar fries, ... Can't forget that. Oh, the fries, comma. Which, by the way, is what they're most known for, comma, was the most disappointing. I get it, ... We are coming out of a pandemic and in the middle of inflation, but potatoes are cheap, all caps, period. They have, all caps, clearly increased prices and changed portions, ... A lot, all caps. A friend and I split what we have traditionally known as a, quote, small order. We went from, quote, oh, this is not going to be enough, to not even finishing all of our, quote, super small sized order. They were way overcooked. The fry/toppings portions were way off too. The cheese was harder than it should have been. My lunch mate, who is in the food/hospitality industry, comma, and also a Snuffers lover, comma, was so disappointed that she said she would not be back. I can't say that I'm far behind that. The wait staff were all very nice, and we had great service from the young man that helped us. Okay, I have nothing else to say, other than that was really annoying to read. All right, this one's shorter, but it's a 2-star. 2 stars. For a place that has so much lighting outside, the features inside did not meet the hype. The food was just okay. Worse than my home cooking. Way to air yourself out, bud. The servers work hard and show dedication, but they seemed disorganized, symbolized by their unmatched casual clothes, including grubby jeans or shorts on some. Oh no. In a small hole-in-the-wall burger joint, they're wearing jeans and shorts? How dare! Where are their blazers and slacks? I'm flabbergasted at the lack of professionalism. The lighting and vibe were very casual, like a worn-down bar or saloon. The crowd seemed okay with all of this. ... Yeah, 'cause it's a burger bar, and they're not tightwads like you. I'm for the ability to just relax. Are you? Are you? And enjoy each other's company over comfort foods. But I would think such a casual place should offer pricing slightly below that of the fancier restaurants on Greenville. The pricing was similar to those restaurants. Okay. I mean, I haven't been here before, so I guess I'd have to see and really look at the prices, but that's the second review that said it was expensive. I don't know. But these people could also just be cheap. All right. 1-star review. Drum roll, everybody. This place used to have good food, but not so much lately. And don't get me started on the lack of customer service. I work for a third-party delivery service. I usually place my customers' orders online or by phone ahead, so I'm not wasting my time or the customers'. Snuffer's website did not allow the customizations requests by my customer, so I called to place the order. However, the person who answered told me I had to come in and order in person. They won't take my company's orders over the phone. That person even told me I was at the restaurant. What? Sorry, I'm confused. I'm going to reread. That person even told me once I was at the restaurant that she disagreed with the company policy. Okay. I say, don't waste your time here. Go somewhere with better food that actually knows what customer service is. Oh, and get this, ! This guy hands me a sack without the canned drinks I ordered. I asked about them. He hands me 2 cans. I asked if he had a bag to put them in. He offered to put them in another bag, then took the bag with the hot food in it, untied it, and dropped the cold cans in and handed it back to me. Okay? Appalled doesn't begin to describe my reaction. That's the end of the review. Okay. I feel like we need some better adjectives for putting everything in one bag. How are you appalled that he put cans in a bag with your... Yes, I get what he's saying. Like, it's warm food and you put a cold drink in there, it's going to make the food cold. Whatever, bro. Like, if you're that triggered, then take them out of the bag. Or like, here's a thought. Put the bag in your arm, because there's holes. Put it on your arm. And carry the cans. Is that too hard to ask? All right. So like I said, no mention of ghosts in the reviews, unfortunately. I searched for different keywords and scrolled through, couldn't find anything, but I thought those would be entertaining to make fun of. I hope you guys enjoyed this Patreon leak. If you did, please be sure to let me know. Drop a comment on Spotify if you're listening there, or send me a message on Instagram. And if you want more Texas Urban Legends, or you want to support the show, get over 50 pieces of bonus content, go check out the Perplexed Society, patreon.com/Perplexity Mystery Podcast. You can get exclusive bonus content at the $3 tier. There are also some general support tiers and some higher level tiers. You can join for as low as $1 a month, and all of the tiers have a 7-day free trial. So go check that out if that interests you. I hope you all have a great Thanksgiving. You all are amazing. Hope you have a great week and stay safe. I will talk to you next week. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Perplexity, a mystery podcast, hosted, written, and produced by Kaydra Brannon. Assistant producer is TJ McCrae. If you enjoyed today's episode, tell the world about it by leaving a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It really is the best way to support. Have a topic request or a perplexing story of your own you'd like to share? send an email to perplexitymysterypodcast@gmail.com. If you would like to support the show further and unlock exclusive bonus content, join the Perplexed Society at patreon.com/Perplexity Mystery Podcast. Perplexity merch and additional support links can be found in the episode description. Until next week, stay curious.